Hello everybody, welcome to the Northern Film Review. This week we have an amazing guest on, Lily, to talk about her fantastic experimental film, The Pink, the Wonderful, the sort of weird, the crazy, the experimental film, and with lots to talk about. We're talking about sort of the male gaze, we're talking about Portrait of a Lady on Fire for some reason, and loads of other stuff. Hope you enjoy. The Northern Film Review with your hosts Oliver Ellis and Luke Simpson. So yes, hello Luke.
Hello.
We tend to do these sort of podcasts, and we don't jump right into the interview because we like to sort of explain it a bit. And I think I don't like doing this sort of like weird intro that I do. You know, the bit you've heard before this, where I go, "Hello, everybody." I don't like doing that with guests because I think that would freak them out a bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So what we do is we do the interview straight away, and then we just go back and record the intro and outro.
Yes.
Easy.
I don't know whether that's the best way to do it, but we do it. And it is quite an interesting way to do it because we last week actually I did do it in the way that I said I don't like doing it with our debate with Luke.
The great debate.
The great
have you know.
debate, which and again sounds like masturbate. But I think it's.
I mean, I think he was more comfortable doing it because we've known him a longer time than we have with our guests coming up, and I think if we did what we do, it might make them a bit nervous and stuff like that. So I think we want our guests to be as comfortable as possible.
Yeah, and I think you know, when you sort of see these interviews with you know, big film directors or actors or whatever, they tend to be quite comfortable because they do a lot of interviews, and we're getting a lot of people on our course whom. Am I using whom? You know what? I never know whether I'm using whom right. Anyway, and I'm like, obviously they're on our course and they're sort of similar levels as us. So I'm just kind of, we like to sort of make people feel comfortable. I think freaking people out by going, "Hello, everybody."
It's a bit jarring, isn't it?
It's jarring, yeah. It feels like it's something sort of proper rather than a conversation. I think that tends to work well. But like I said in the intro, we do have Lily on to interview her about her experimental film, which is really interesting. It's really sort of captivating and wonderful film, and like we'll talk about in the interview. And it's sort of because we like to interview people about their experimental films because it gives us a lot to talk about. Because I think with Dan and Marcel, who we interviewed for our first podcast of season 2, we were like, they had a lot of stuff to talk about in their film, and they had a lot of interesting processes. And I like to talk about how people, the creative process, because it's something that I can implement a little bit into my own filmmaking, and talk about it a bit. Because it's so interesting because everyone has a different process that they work to, especially in lockdown, because you know you have to find new and innovative ways to sort of work collaboratively, and I really like to hear about that process. I don't know whether it's just me, but you know, it is fun.
It is, yeah, because during lockdown you come up with these weird and wonderful ways to go get around normal filming techniques, like basically making a tripod out of, I don't know, books and I don't know what else, bottles and stuff like that. It's like it's very janky rigs, which are very dangerous for your phone or camera, but it's the fun of it, isn't it?
Yeah, like Lily mentions in the interview, which you'll hear after this. She puts she was being complimented by her for aiming for a film. And she was like, "Well, I just put my phone on like a stand or whatever," and that's kind of, and I like that sort of, you know, DIY-ness of lockdown filmmaking. It's really interesting and really sort of fabulous way of making films, I think. But yeah, hopefully you will enjoy this interview with Lily. Here you go. Here's the interview.
Welcome back to the Northern Film Review.
Okay, sweet.
So yeah, welcome to this interview with Lily. How you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you guys?
Good, yeah. Trucking on, I think.
Yeah.
So we're kind of here to discuss your experimental film that you made, because we all made our own experimental film,
We did.
and it was an interesting experience. But we went through the list of films that we were given, and we were particularly intrigued by a couple of them. Yours being one of them.
Why, thank you.
And because we did an interview, like I was saying before we started recording, with Dan and Marcel about their film, and perhaps we interviewed them because we're very interested in a certain part of their film, which we felt would be a good radio. But we're quite interested by your film because it's very well made.
Well, thank you.
It's sort of, yeah, it's very interesting to watch as well. It's very sort of boggling to the mind. And I watched it when we sort of all had to submit it, and I was going through like the drive, and I was looking at everyone's films, and
Getting a sneak preview.
yeah, getting a sneak preview of everyone's films. I was quite interested by it. And I said to Luke, well, this film's really good, or we like this film. We should get whoever made this onto the show and talk to them about it. And I sent it to Luke, and Luke sort of he was baffled by it.
Yeah. So he shared the link with me, and I was watching it. I was just like, first of all, very well made, very unique as well. That's what I quite like about it. It's very unique. I watched it quite late on, quite long in the night as well, and it was just, in a good way, very weird.
Good. That's like the biggest compliment.
In a good way, very weird. It's just the movements and everything like that. It was, and also in a good way, a bit off-putting as well.
Good.
I don't know if
Exactly what I wanted.
Perfect.
If you were to describe it like in a sentence or a couple of words, how would you like? What would you say about it?
Oh God, I always struggle with this one. I kind of say it's sort of, in terms of the narrative, it's like this sort of strange creature that wakes up in this weird place and like has these whales on her feet and is just kind of like exploring her new freedom in this very restricted environment. But then like in terms of like the sort of the themes and stuff, like I kind of only realised what it meant after I made it. And like I sort of realised how phallic the headpiece was. And I was like, oh, it's like a sort of visual representation of like internalised misogyny and how it can like drive like the male gaze can actually drive how women like act and what they do. And then that's why there's all these sort of like poses and stuff in there. It's kind of like a parody on like sort of pop culture, I guess.
Wow, yeah.
Sorry, that was more than a few sentences, sorry.
No, it's a good description of it. I think, well, I kind of got that a bit from watching it. I perhaps, when I kind of watched it the first time, I was like, well, is this person kind of like being birthed? And I kind of thought this is like an alien baby in like a womb or whatever. I don't know whether you sort of intended that, but that's a really sort of great description of the film. And I love that sort of like that. You kind of found out what it was about after you made it. So when going into it, you were just like, well, I got to make what sort of is in my head, or were you just like...
Yeah, like I'd seen quite a lot of stuff. I did sort of research to do with like dancers like Michael Clark and just stuff like that. And I was really interested in the idea of like reverse choreography. So like doing stuff backwards and then reversing it so it's like it looks the right way round but it all looks a little bit off. So then I was like, oh well, I've got this basement room, I've got my roller skates, like let's just see what I can get away with.
So did you do choreography as you went on, or did you come up with the dance on the spot, or did you have a kind of dance in mind when you were doing it?
It was a bit of both. Like I sort of planned the overall stages. Like I knew I was going to start off sort of like quite tentative, like on the floor, and then as she sort of builds her confidence, she gets up a bit more. But a lot of it, like people keep talking about the framing of it being like, oh, the framing's so interesting, but genuinely, like I was just like balancing my phone wherever it would like stay up. And that was my cinematography.
Yeah, that's also very interesting as well, because like when I watched it, I was like, wow, there's loads of elements to this film. There's like, because you watch some of the films and they've been made like by quite a few people, like 5 or 4 people, and I watched this film, I was like, well, you know, there's really great sort of set design, and there's sort of you've made like this costume, and there's like, you know, an actor, and it's all very pink and wonderfully edited and stuff like that. And I kind of thought like, oh, there's got to be like a team behind this, and it's just you making it, isn't it?
Just me. Thank you. Yeah.
Which is really inspiring, because I really like the I'm really interested in the set design, because it's so sort of, I think with a lot of student films, you tend to get like the elements that they tend to lack in are like sound and set design elements. And I felt like the set design was really interesting and sort of unique. So how did you go about sort of making that? Did you like set out a design, or do you just like start throwing
throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks? Well, so we had this like little random room in our basement that like it was just full of loads of like just rubbish basically. So I was like, oh, perfect little set. So I kind of tidied that all up and found these like bits, I think they were from like an oven or a fridge, just like on the pavement. And I was like, oh, they're cool and squiggly, I'll get them. So they're the kind of like metal bits that were on the floor, and then the rest of it was literally, I just bought like 3 rolls of cling film and like stuck it up like either in clumps or kind of like spread out, because I thought the way that like the light would bounce off it looked really cool, like it would give it quite a lot of like texture even though it's just like a plain white wall. But yeah, and then and we found that like tube, this big collapsible white tube in the basement, and we all like were joking about that it's like the umbilical cord of like that room. So then yeah, I like put my kind of like fairy lights into that, so it lit up from the inside, and yeah, it all just kind of developed as it went along, to be fair. But I had a sort of vague idea, but yeah, it was pretty experimental.
What was the whole point of the subject, wasn't it? Quite experimental. So, did you spend any money on this project? So, like with the cling film or like the lighting, did you buy the lighting, or did you already have these lights in your room?
The lighting was a few desk lamps, and then I painted some hummus pots, like just the plastic, and then like stuck them over the bulb, and I was like, oh, it's like a pink gel.
Yeah, student filmmaking at its best there.
Exactly. So yeah, the only thing I spent money on was the cling film, and then the nude tights as well that I would like, and I already had stuffing, because who doesn't just have a bin bag of stuffing lying around? Yeah.
Yeah, I like that you painted hummus pots and stuff like that. And it's just all super DIY, and it's fantastic. Yeah, I think one of the weirder elements. It's all very weird, and I've already said this. But I think one of the sort of the mainly weird elements was like the your costume, because you act in it, like I said. You're going around on your roller skates, and you sort of have this sort of like tights and stuffing thing, which was it was an interesting sort of like, and I like, because you've got it on your face as well.
Yeah.
Was that hard to breathe, and was that a conscious decision to like put it over your face, or?
Yeah, so with it having it over my face, it did kind of make it hard to breathe. I felt like, you know, like a bank robber when they have like the tights over their heads. But yeah, I had to do a lot of mouth breathing. But yeah, with the rest of the costume, like I'd done quite a lot of research like about Lee Bowery, who is like a sort of, he called himself a fashion designer, but he just kind of would design really weird outfits and then wear them out to clubs in the 80s, because he was like one of the like club kids. So I had these sort of all this inspiration about like how to sort of like distort the body and like just make weird shapes out of it. So that's kind of where, and there was like a quote by him where he's like, flesh is my most favourite fabric. and I was like, oh, that's so cool. So that kind of was why I got the nude tights and then stuffed underneath that, because I was like, well, it in the pink light as well, it kind of looks quite like fleshy, but it's like distorting my body shape a bit.
Yeah, because when I first watched it, the kind of it kind of looked like, to me, a tumor, kind of like a cancerous tumor. I don't know why. When it just looked, the lumps and the light onto the flesh, it was very very well put together as well. But so yeah, what was I gonna say now? Got out of my mind now.
Well, anyway,
distracted by the fleshy.
He's distracted by the fleshiness. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all sort of because when we were talking to Dan and Marcel, they had quite an interesting sort of weird back and forth when they Marcel was on his phone and he was directing Dan over Facebook Messenger and stuff like that, and he was had a video of him. So obviously you did this to yourself.
I did it to myself.
But did you record some of the clips, and did you go back and watch them and then go, oh well, I need to do this better, or I should have done it in that way, directing yourself?
Yeah. So I did a bit of a test shoot kind of thing, and was sort of working out the movements and stuff like that. But I'm really rubbish at making myself I was rubbish at making myself actually do it. I'd just be like, oh yeah, that'll be good enough. And then it got to the actual shoot. I did stuff. And then I was looking through the footage. I was like, fuck this. Oh, am I allowed? Sorry if I swear. And I was like, oh God, I've got so much stuff that I still need to do. So I ended up having another unexpected shoot day, which then I used, all of the footage was from that second day. So yeah, I kind of it was a bit trial and error, really. Yeah.
Although you worked on your own, did you ever share whilst you were doing your edits, or you're doing your sound?
No,
did you not share anything with anyone?
No, I was so sort of not embarrassed, but I was very secretive about it, because I couldn't even wrap my head around the film. Like I said before, I only worked out what it meant a week after. So I was I don't know how to explain this to anyone who's asking, and I was too scared to show anyone, because I was they're gonna think it's so weird. So yeah, the first person to see it I think was my mum, and I showed her it just after I submitted it. So I was if you don't like it, don't tell me, because it's too late now anyway.
Yeah, that's definitely a way to do it. I remember showing my parents my film, and there was sort of, because it's an experimental film, they were quite sort of a bit freaked out by it, and they didn't particularly understand it, and it's sort of the difficulty of showing an experimental film to someone, because it's all in your head, and I get it, I know what's going on, and I constantly had this fear of people aren't going to get why this black square is moving around on this screen.
Yeah, he shared it with me, and I was like, am I just dumb, or am I not? I just don't understand what's going on here. I like it, don't get me wrong, but I have no idea what's going on.
And
that's
it's the anxiety of making experimental film, isn't it?
Yeah,
having that sort of are people going to get this? And I suppose with your film, it's kind of I did get it, but I suppose I didn't get what you were sort of you thought it was, but I suppose it was along those lines, and I like that sort of bit of it.
Yeah, it's been really interesting now that I have shown it to more people. Dan showed it at the start of Secret Cinema a few weeks ago, and hearing everyone's different interpretations is so cool. Because obviously, it means something to me, but it means something completely different to other people, and it doesn't mean no one's sort of idea is any more valid. And quite a few people had said the womb sort of fleshy, they thought it was a baby, before it's getting birthed, all of that. So there's definitely themes that keep coming up with it, which I just think is so cool to hear about.
And I found out by doing it, the experimental film, that like you said, you have an idea, but I think the whole point of it is to gauge other people's ideas, or let them, let the audience come up with an idea and see
exactly
how that works.
Definitely. I think Carol Morley, like she's like a British director, said like the film is only finished when something to do with like the audience finished the film basically, but like it is so true.
Yeah, I love that. It's sort of because it's very much about like letting your art into the world and seeing like it no longer becomes your art; it becomes the people who watch it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's who you do it for at the end of the day.
Doing it for other people, yeah. And it's such a wonderful film, and it's so interesting to sort of watch. One of the other elements that I quite liked, but I felt like it. And again, going on the sort of the abstract experimental route, was the music elements were sort of like intertwined with it, and that was super interesting. Was that like pre-made music, or did you work with a composer or something?
Well, I made the music. My dad had this like really cool just like synthesizer thing, like an analog.
Nice.
It was like it was so cool. So I literally just like plugged it. I can't remember how I did it now. I think I recorded it straight into my laptop, but anyway, that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, so so it's this like cool little synthesizer, and he sort of showed me the basics of how to kind of like create the sounds and then sort of like mess with the sounds a bit. And then I just kind of like watched the film and made the sound like to go alongside it. But then like I ended up like reordering the whole film, like chopping up loads, and I was like, oh, the soundtrack goes with like a completely different cut of the film, so then I had to like snip it all up and move it around a lot. But yeah, it was a fun process though. I really enjoyed it.
So did you record it straight into Premiere Pro, or did you use Pro Tools, or what did you use to actually record your synthesizer?
Yeah, I'm trying to think now. I think so I recorded the synthesizer into like my dad's like old laptop, because like using Audacity, just like a really basic like audio package, just downloaded it into there and then sort of like transferred that onto my computer and then just sort of chopped it up in Premiere.
That's an interesting way of doing it. Like just because I recorded music for mine as well, and I felt like I don't know whether it was sort of, I like the interesting sort of process of like whether the music is leading the images or the images are leading the music.
Definitely.
And I like that sort of aspect of it. And when we were sort of watching the film and Luke was really interested by the editing at the end as well, weren't you?
Yeah, so, but I'm doing editing specialism, so I'm really interested in post-production and editing and stuff like that. And I was just wondering the speeding up and stuff like that. What made you decide to do like a? I think it happened. I think at least two times or three times.
Yeah.
Like fast forwarding, getting faster and faster and faster. Do you know what influenced you to do that, or why you did that?
So the initial idea of it was just this sort of idea of like it's a sort of a vicious cycle really, this whole kind of thing with like I spoke about before with the male gaze, and like I also sort of tied like social media usage into it, because I found that you can be very like as a woman like very sort of like performative on social media, and it kind of like goes along with that whole male gaze thing. And I was like, well, you know, you can delete Instagram for like 2 months, get out of it, clear your head, and then as soon as you download it, you're literally back to square one. So it's just this idea of kind of like going around and like she's sort of like finding her feet, and then she like sort of gets too confident, falls over, and then there's like a little break, and then it all kind of starts again. So yeah, it was just this idea of things just being in a bit of a never-ending cycle.
Yeah. And was that a conscious decision to always have it go faster and faster and faster, or was it was it just in a not spur of the moment thing, or was it when you were editing you thought, oh, this will be a good thing to do?
Yeah, so I always had the idea of it being like cyclical. So initially I was sort of like the film will start where it ended, and then like it's one of those films that kind of just keeps going. But then that kind of, it wasn't like super clear when I did it like that. So I think Andy, my tutor, just suggested like speeding it up and looping it. And like, I really loved what it did to the sound when I sped it up. Like I thought it made it sound really cool. So
it sounded like a VHS kind of like, when you fast forward a VHS.
Yeah. And then there was like the bit that I just really loved was like the weird noise after she falls over. Once that sped up, it sounded just it sounded sick, so that's why I just did like 4 of them at the end, because I was just like boom boom crash crash crash, like yeah, way to end it.
Yeah, so I love the film, and this is something I'm interested about as well. So like, it's an experimental film, and it's something that we kind of had to. I think a lot of people saw it as like, oh, it's just sort of crazy stuff going around and stuff like that. But what I find interesting is sort of putting these elements into sort of more, I don't know what to call it, normal films in quotation marks. Do you think you'll like add any of these elements? So you're sort of like, because we're doing a drama film at the moment. Do you think you'll add any of these sort of experimental elements into your own sort of?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, I incorporated quite a lot of experimental stuff into when we did our documentary module last year, because like we were interviewing a girl about she had like an OnlyFans account, and we were doing all these like very sort of personal interviews, but then at the same time we had like projections of her with like sort of like classical oil paintings and stuff over, because I was like wanted to tie it into like John Berger like ways of seeing, like all that stuff. So I'm definitely, I don't know if I'd incorporate anything directly sort of influenced from the film I just made, but like I'm definitely very, very open to sort of having more experimental things in my like other films in general. Yeah, maybe the reverse choreography, because that was cool.
Yeah, and it is an interesting sort of because you see a lot of these films with sort of a little bit of experimental in them, and I quite like that, and I quite enjoy that. Do you think you'll carry on with this sort of like experimental theme as like an independent filmmaker, or do you think it's sort of a nice sort of part of your greater sort of film career?
I think I'll like keep going with it, because like I learned a lot about, like, it sounds so cheesy, but like I did learn a lot about myself when I was making it, like this whole sort of thing of figuring out that it tied into social media and like sort of internalized misogyny and stuff. I was like, whoa, this is like actually kind of deep, and it's just came from me like dressing up in roller skates in a strange costume. Like I like exploring sort of deeper issues, but in quite a stylized or like almost like whimsical way. I think I find that a really fun way of working.
Yeah, the thing with the experimental films is that it's normally ideas that you can't normally put into a feature-length film or a short film, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like a way to, I think it's a way to express yourself.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, like although it's like super absurdist and strange, like I still feel like the film is like really, really personal. Yeah, it's fun.
Do you think it's difficult to get personal in like a film like this, or do you think it comes naturally to you?
I think it comes quite naturally, just because like the sort of the themes that I'm generally interested in with filmmaking is sort of like social things, like sort of to do with like gender, sexuality, like all of that stuff, and those things are just inherently personal as well. Obviously they relate to wider society, but everyone's got their own personal experience, so yeah, it's just kind of what I naturally lean towards, I think.
So and also like you touch on the sort of the deeper meanings and sort of the societal like social implications. Do you think it's important for like filmmakers to touch on these subjects, or do you think do you just think it's important for filmmakers to,
Yeah, oh definitely. I mean, like film and media has such an influence on like the way people sort of view themselves and view the world. Like, I mean, it's why like representation and stuff is so important, and like for like sort of, obviously we've got like millions of films about straight white men, like, and then so when I see something that's like, it's about like a queer woman and her main storyline isn't just the fact that she's gay, it's like, oh my God, she actually has a life outside of that. Wow. Like, I just think, wait, sorry, what was the question again? I've gone off on one.
It doesn't matter. and I think also, well, this film weirdly sort of, because you were talking about sort of the male gaze and stuff like that, and sort of it weirdly reminds me of like, do you know who Celine Sciamma is?
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of her films a bit, and sort of the
that's such a compliment. I love her.
Especially like sort of some of the themes in Portrait of a Lady on Fire and stuff like that. and sort of developing on those sort of things.
Yeah.
And the sort of the coming to the sort of the final notes in this. So it's got quite an interesting name, and I think you sort of touched on it earlier with the head being a bit phallic or whatever. It's called Head Shape. Is there a specific reasoning for that, or is it just sort of?
Yeah. So I was just I wanted to frame the film and the narrative with the title, because I was like, this film could probably be interpreted in like so many different ways. I wanted to use the title as a little bit of a sort of signpost. So then I thought the main thing about the main theme in this, after I realised it, was this whole kind of how a woman's thoughts can be driven by like the male gaze and that. So I thought, well, head shape sort of points out the big like on her head, basically. And then hopefully people consider that as like, that's like being thought about and considered, like it's not just accidental. Yeah.
Yeah, I just love so many elements about this film, and it's just an interesting sort of thought-provoking film to watch, and I love the sort of the elements and the themes that sort of burgeon in throughout the film. It's very well done. So sort of we're nearing the end of the sort of the podcast, but I do really love it.
Thank you so much.
It's definitely wonderful, and I think you should definitely see some sort of film festival play. I think it's really interestingly made. But just I think those are my final thoughts. Unless you want to say anything else, Luke.
No, I really enjoyed it. I found it really unique, interesting, and it was just a beautiful film. Really nice film.
Thanks so much. It's been really fun talking about it with you.
It's fun sort of having people on, because we like sort of interviewing people about the films they've made, because we're obviously we're interested in the process, and it's something we can sort of like put into our own films, and it's sort of developing a conversation between filmmakers and stuff like that. But it's been great having you on. Definitely. So yeah, we'll try and post a link to it somewhere in the description. And anything else, but yeah, thanks for coming on, Lily.
Oh well, thank you for having me.
All right. So that was a good interview, was it not?
Brilliant interview.
10 out of 10. And again, like I said in the intro, this is a very weird way of doing things, because we literally just recorded the intro, and it's jarring for me. But yeah, so Lily brought up lots of interesting points there, and she's a very interesting person, and a fabulous film, and yeah, like I said in the intro, I like to learn about the creative process, and she is a very distinct one. I like the fact that she found out what the film meant after she made the film.
Yeah, because most people think of a meaning before they go into the film, but it's like, let me just make a whole film and then think of the meaning after.
Yeah, because I think what I tend to do is either script writing or sound, so I'm like at either end of the
spectrum
cycle, and I just I either don't really know what the meaning is yet in script writing and then hand it to a director, or I know what the meaning is in sound.
Yeah,
and, I think it's quite an interesting sort of comparison, I think.
Yeah, because when my group went to do our experimental film, we I think it was like we came up with what we wanted to do it straight away. We all had agreement on it. Someone put an idea in. I was like, yeah, we'll definitely do that. So we had our meaning straight away, which then kind of made it a bit easy to do going along. But I can totally agree. It's an experimental film. It's you just go with the flow, as I would say. Go with the flow.
Yeah, go with the flow with it a bit. And I think when I was making my experimental film, I had quite a sort of I don't know. I developed my meaning in the creation of my process, and I think unlike Lily, I did sort of know what my meaning of my film meant, partially through, and yeah, it is quite an interesting process that people go through, especially lockdown filmmaking and the lockdown. Which is quite interesting, and yeah, I don't know. Experimental filmmaking is so interesting to me. And maybe we'll get someone else on the show to interview about their process. Make it a trio of experimental films that we really liked, and and eventually we'll stop doing experimental films and we'll stop talking about people prancing around,
dancing around in skin suits and
I mean,
phallic objects
as
on
much
the
as
head.
it is very interesting, and we do love it. I think I don't know.
We're going into a new module next, aren't we? So
we're doing a filmmaking module, which is drama, and we'll get people on to interview them about their films and stuff like that. I think the thing is with experimental film is like I know exactly who to get on, right? And I'm like, well, it's just it's been made by like one or two people, and you just get those one or two people on. But with filmmaking, there's like 6, 7 people in a group.
Yeah, it's like, who do we get in? Do we get in the director? Do we get in the cinematographer? Do we get in the producer? Do we get in the editor? Sound recordist?
Screenwriter.
Yeah.
Everyone always forgets about the screenwriter, don't they?
Aww.
Which is, it's not like it's their idea or anything, but I'm only saying this because of sort of
because you're doing screenwriting.
I wrote my script, and they were trying to have like I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say this. YOLO. But they were like, the producer said, "Oh, we should have a meeting with the actor," and she was like, "Well, I'm going to go, and the director's going to go as well, and Oliver, you can tag along as well." And someone was like in the group was like, "Why does he need to go?" I was like, "I wrote the script." I wrote this. She's my character. At the moment, this is the. Anyway, frustration overload.
Breathe.
I perhaps didn't need to be there, but it's just.
But you wanted to be there.
I wanted to be there, and it was nice to be invited. You know what I mean? I like to be. This is perhaps nothing to do with the interview we just had with Lily, but it's just screenwriters are important too. It is my idea on paper, and you're all working off my idea. Just saying. Just wanted to say
Hands
that.
up, just saying.
I'm the most important person in the room. Hear me roar. But it was very fun having Lily on. We'll have more people on in the future. We'll link her film in the description as well, hopefully. Because I don't think we could have linked Dan and Marcel's film because of the explicitness of.
Yeah, and they were. I don't think you had it up on YouTube or anything like that. Yeah, they're trying to get into festivals and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so.
I think they're sort of broadening it to be sort of festival play and stuff like that, which is something I've debated. But I just,
the process is a pain.
The process is a real pain, and I think I have many problems with the film festival. Maybe that could be a whole podcast in itself. Me talking about why I hate film festivals and the idea of I like going to film festivals. I've been to film
I do as well. When I was at college, we went to the York Short Film Festival.
Yeah.
Twice actually, but in both years. Because it was literally on our doorstep, so that's why I went.
And hopefully after the 21st of June, we'll be going to some film festivals and stuff like that. Because wasn't it in this year we were supposed to go to a film festival in Poland or something like that with the university?
We had the opportunity to. I think it's even our second year or third year.
Yeah, something like that. I'd like to go to that.
But COVID happened.
Oh my God, don't cough. But I like going to film festivals. Don't like the idea of getting into film festivals. I think it's. Anyway, so thank you to Lily for coming on. Thank you for being a great guest. So hopefully you enjoyed the show. Hopefully you enjoyed last week's show as well, our debate on Martin Scorsese. Check it out on YouTube as well. And make sure to check out all our podcasts on YouTube. We've got lots of great stuff on there. Make sure to check us out on Instagram, the Northern Film Review. Our YouTube is the same, I think.
It is, yeah.
And hopefully you enjoyed it. And we'll see you guys next week. Oh, and also check out our radio show Saturday 12 till 1 on Lee Student Radio. Yeah. I nearly forgot that then. I was like, Something I'm forgetting.
The whole reason why we're doing this.
Yes. Forgetting one of the main points of our whole thing. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the show. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
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 Bye.